Hello, everyone. Welcome to the DMV Business Show. I'm your host, Otto Sevilla, and today our special guest is Jacob Hensley, owner and founder of District Dogs. Welcome to the show. Welcome to the show, Jacob.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Of course. So before we get into your journey, if you could just give a brief overview to the audience as far as what is District Dogs?
Yeah. So District Dogs, we're a pet care company in the Washington, D.C. area. We do doggy daycare, dog boarding, training, grooming, overnight pet sitting, and dog walking. So we pretty much do everything that your dog could need. And we also do some cat services as well. We have 3 locations currently in Washington, D.C. And then we have one more opening next year and a couple others opening up in Virginia in the following years.
Oh, that's awesome. And they're all in the district in Washington, D.C., and you said a few in Northern Virginia, right?
Yeah, so the 3 I have open currently, I have one in Navy Yard across from the Nat Stadium. I have one in Shaw on Sherman Avenue near 930 Club, if you're familiar with the area. And then my original location is on Georgia Avenue in the Parkview neighborhood, just north of Howard University. And then my 4th one will be opening in Northeast DC on Rhode Island Avenue, and then 2 others in Virginia, one in Clarendon, spring of next year, and then one in National City, which is the new Amazon HQ2 complex in 2023.
That's great. So it's almost 6 there.
Yeah, it'll be 6 total, and there'll probably be a couple others as well. So we'll see.
Oh, that's great. I can't wait to get into the story. So are you originally from this area, the district, the DMV, or?
I am not. I've been in DC 11 years now. I got here in 2010. But I'm originally from Kentucky.
Oh, Kentucky. Whereabouts in Kentucky?
I was raised in Florence, Kentucky, just south of Cincinnati, Ohio.
Okay.
But I was born in Eastern Kentucky.
Okay. So you did all through high school in Kentucky, right?
Yep. All high school and all my college as well, my undergraduate.
Oh, okay. So as a child in Kentucky, Jacob, what were you into? What did you like to do in your free time?
I was definitely a quiet kid, a loner. I mean, I had some friends, but I spent a lot of time alone. Most of my time, was catching bugs and frogs, spending time in the creek. I had lots of different bug cages and stuff. It was just really crazy. I just always was catching little animals. I loved animals. I loved nature. I loved plants. And of course I had my family dog, which is super important to me. But I was alone a lot just with nature.
You know, I'm smiling because my oldest, I have 3 boys. So my oldest son, Liam, he's so into that. He actually just a week ago, Jacob, formed a terrarium. And yeah, he was just looking for some plastic boxes, and we didn't have any, so we had leftovers. So he went outside. When we go on hikes here in nature, he's always looking under rocks to see what he can find. And yeah, it just reminds me, it's just this is him trying to build this terrarium, putting little bugs and insects in there. And just this Sunday, we were on a hike, and he found a salamander. He was like, oh my God. And it was just the world to him. And then he's like, Papa, help me look up what type of salamander is this in Maryland. So I'm over there and Googling it. I'm like, Liam, I think this is the one. But it just brings, when you mentioned this, you growing up, I was like, this is my oldest. It's exactly what we're going through right now.
Yeah. There's so much to learn and curiosity of nature and what's around you. It's just a really fun experience. I loved it as a kid, and I still do. Whenever I go out with my nephews, or even alone, on a hike with friends as a 34-year-old, I'll flip over a rock and see what I can find just for fun. Or I'll point out different plants, say, oh, there's that. It's nice to know what's around you.
It is. Mother Nature is definitely beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you were into, and I guess, that growing up, and then you said you also went to college in Kentucky. Where'd you end up attending?
I went to Morehead State University. It's a small school in Eastern Kentucky. I went there 4 years. I graduated with a degree in finance.
What were you thinking as far as for finance and, as far as career when you were in college there?
Yeah, I mean, long term, I thought about, ever since I was a kid, I knew I wanted to start my own business. So that was always in my head. And even though I wanted a career and in finance, and I had a career for a few years in finance, I always knew deep down I need to start a business. But with finance, I started investing when I was very young. As soon as I turned 18, I opened up, like literally the day of my birthday, I opened up an E-Trade or a Scottrade account just to start investing. Because I've been saving money in all small different businesses as a kid for a very long time. I'm like, okay, now I can finally start investing on my own without parent supervision and stuff. So yeah, I wanted to get like in stocks and just helping a financial advice. And I was a financial advisor with Edward Jones and then Merrill Lynch after college for 3 years.
Yeah, that's good. I think I was 16. I was definitely not 18 yet because I persuaded like crazy to get my uncle to open an E-Trade account for me because I was not of age yet. So I was able to use his information, of course, with his blessing. And then I opened my first E-Trade account. But before that, Scottrade, I don't know if it's still around or what happened. All these people get merged and acquired. Yeah. You were able to do sort of the simulation where you would sort of play in the stock market. And but I remember I went to Maryland here, University of Maryland, and in between classes, I would sort of go in to check. This is with day trading. But I learned a lot there as far as day trading, what to do and what not to do.
Definitely.
Yeah. So you were, after graduation, you said you became a financial advisor?
Yeah. I got a job at Edward Jones in their home office in St. Louis, Missouri. And then I was there for about a year, and then I moved to DC from Edward Jones to work for a financial advisor out here, and then eventually went to Merrill Lynch to do the same thing for Merrill Lynch, a little bit bigger and more locally.
Okay, and you went to the Merrill Lynch office in downtown in DC?
I actually worked out of 3 different Bank of America branches. So I worked in Bethesda, Spring Valley, in Northwest DC, and then also the Friendship Heights branch.
Yeah. Being a financial advisor, it's almost like you have your own business. You have your own book of business. So you had that going on as well, as far as your interest also in the financial markets.
Yeah, definitely. I've always been like self-motivating, and that's really important to be a financial advisor or even a small business owner.
What made you to leave the financial industry and get into this?
So I got my current dog, or one of my current dogs, Molly, 9 years ago. Yes, she's 9. And when we first got her, it took us several weeks to find a dog walker that we liked, that we trusted, and that was affordable. And I just saw like a big need in the pet care space in Washington, D.C. when I first got my dog. So I got my mind going. I have a little book of like business ideas, and I just wrote down pet care and just did some brainstorming in my little book. And then eventually, as I kept working for Merrill Lynch, and like I still started thinking more about businesses. And then that year, I think I was 26. I'm like, well, it's now or never type of thing. So I'm 26. I'm young enough where if it fails, I can get back in the finance industry. I'm still late 20s, early 30s, or it's a great success. And it's worked out so far for me. But it's just like, I know if I waited to my 30s, I would be super risk averse and just not want to try something new. So I was young enough. I'm like, let's do it.
Yeah, that happens. You get comfortable, especially with being a financial advisor. It takes time to develop that book of business. And with a certain period of time, you're like, I did all this hard work, 5-10 years, whatever. And should I now leave it? Right. Yeah, this is not always easy. So you decided, you had the idea, you said you had a book with ideas. What made you select this one instead of the others you had brainstormed prior to it?
I saw more of a need, and it's something that was a little easier to implement because I started the business as just a dog walking business. I was the first dog walker, the only employee, and there's no overhead, and there's no expenses, just website, marketing. So it was really easy, and I could easily plan out, okay, I need this many dogs to survive, to pay all my expenses and whatever number of dogs that was. And then I need this many dogs to make what I was making before. So I had all these like milestones and goals. And then it was just an easier business to implement. And I love dogs. Dogs are really important to me, really important to a lot of people. And just seemed like the best opportunity of the different ideas I had, and easiest one to get into.
I like that. So it started small with just dog walking, and then from there it built, right?
Yes, yes, yeah. It started dog walking 2014. My first daycare was on 2016. So about 2 years of only dog walking and building the brand. Hiring dog walkers across the DC area, and then I eventually hired a general manager to manage the dog walking piece, so I could focus on my first brick and mortar.
When you start with the dog walking, are you doing this sort of on your time off, Jacob, between, being a financial advisor, I guess, evenings, weekends? Is that how it started?
Nope, it started, left my job and made
Oh,
the website live. And then it started I was fortunate enough to have like a spare bedroom in my house. So I was Airbnb-ing. So I was able to have some revenue from there. So the first couple months, I was able to cover a lot of my expenses with Airbnb. And it was really, so it was a good entry. But I went to Craigslist, posted job ads, and I just tried to get those first clients. But I needed it was very few. I think I needed just 6 or 7 a day to live off of, to manage all my expenses. And that's the most important part, is that at least I'm not losing money type of thing. So, and it didn't take long. Maybe it took 3 or 4 weeks after I left Merrill Lynch to get those clients. So I was big enough business to survive. And then it really just sort of snowballed from there pretty quickly.
well, that's great. So it all started with a Craigslist posting. Is that where you were posting?
Yeah. I think my very first client I got from Craigslist. Still remember the client.
So most of, I guess, your client acquisition back then starting off was Craigslist, or were you also trying, I don't know, Facebook Marketplace or other things? Or
it started as the first couple of Craigslist, and then in Yelp. So I created my Yelp account, my Yelp listing, and I pet sat for my neighbors once, and I was like, can you please leave me my first review, which they did. And then Yelp was big as well. Yelp's not crazy important anymore, but it was Yelp and Craigslist. And then eventually a lot of it was word of mouth, and just social media too. But I didn't do any marketing, like a paid marketing on really at all at first.
it was really just grassroots then.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, but you said it didn't take long, only a couple of weeks, and you were already getting booked, I guess, six dogs per day. And
Yeah, I started the business in September 2014, and my first employee I hired, I believe, was October or early November. So within a couple months, or a month and a half, I hired my first employee, part-time employee, and gave that person 5 or 6 dogs to walk, and then I would build up another route. So, and then I believe I had 5 dog walkers by summer 2015. So just within 6 months, probably, I think I had about 5 part-time dog walkers.
wow, okay, that's a lot of growth.
Yeah, there was a lot of need. There's still a lot of need. Dog walking, not so much at the moment with COVID, but yeah, there's a lot of dogs in the city, and yeah.
So you just mentioned routes here. So was your focus on specific neighborhoods in DC, or how was that?
Yeah, I pretty much had my house as the epicenter, so go out from my house. When you build a dog walking route, you want to make sure they're convenient and you can maximize your time by easily going from one dog to another dog. And I picked a few neighborhoods that I was interested in building routes. So at first, my personal route was all over the place, but mostly in Northwest DC. But as I add more clients, then the routes became denser and denser in specific neighborhoods. So I have some dog walkers today that'll walk 10 to 15 dogs a day, all within a 4-block radius, just because over time we've been able to build and condense these routes to maximize everyone's time. But pretty much just Northwest DC when I first started.
When you first started, Jacob, was it immediately the name, the brand, District Dogs, or where did that come afterwards?
Yeah, it was when I first started. District Dogs was the name. I went through before I launched. I had different brand ideas, different logos, and then eventually, what was keeping me from doing District Dogs was the domain districtdogs.com was already purchased, so I had to buy it third party. It was $1,000, and that was my biggest expense. I'm like, this is the best name. It's simple. It's easy. Let's just do it. So that was my one big expense that I had to do before I launched, and I really thought it was worth it, and it has been worth it because it's a really good name, it's recognizable, and it's super simple.
It is. It's a perfect name. I love it, and that's great that you even just before you already knew that this is the name, and you know this, you sort of bit the bullet, like it's an investment, $1,000, and it's going to be worth having that URL.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So then you said a couple months later you had several walkers. Was the idea always to have, I guess, a place and just provide more than just dog walking services, or did that come later?
Yeah, that was always like in the back of my head. Yes, I want to do it. I want to continue growing the brand, but it never really felt like it was going to happen. I just felt like that, like leasing a building, it's a big step for a business, to go from dog walking to a brick and mortar. And I'm like, am I capable of doing this step? Like I've never done this before. I don't know what it's like. But things just fell into place and I did it and it worked out. Yeah, so to answer your question, it was in the back of my head, but I never really knew if it was going to happen.
Yeah. And you said the first location came about 2 years later?
Yeah, in 2016. Yeah, almost exactly 2 years later. We opened in November 2016.
So when that happened, Jacob, were you at a point that I guess maybe enough savings, because obviously it's an investment to do the build out with any location, and or I guess the growth was just so much is like it's time now.
Yeah, very fortunate that my dog walking business was very successful at that time, and the savings from the business helped build it out, and also I just cash flowed the build out with the dog walking profits. So I was very fortunate. If I were to I think starting as a dog walking business really helped build my brand, client base, but really helped provide that cash flow opportunity to do my first location without having to take out a loan. And that would have added a lot more stress to my first location, knowing that it's all debt. But there was no debt taken on to do my first location.
Wow, that's very good. Were you also doing, before the first location, besides dog walking, were you providing other services like pet sitting or boarding, or did that come later?
Yeah, just pet sitting and cat sits, essentially.
Okay.
There's no boarding, but all in home services.
Okay. Okay. I don't know if I'm in commercial real estate, so I'm curious now, how did you select your first location, and how do you go about now selecting the others?
Yeah, so the first location, I have a very good friend who connected me with my real estate broker, and my real estate broker has been absolutely amazing for me. So it's been a great relationship. But I started, like my first location was 1.5 blocks from where I lived.
Oh, that's convenient.
I knew the neighborhood. Like it's sort of like how I invest. I invest in what I know. Like I want to open my location in what I know. Like it's nearby. I know the neighborhood. I know the dogs. And it worked out. And we found it's in Parkview on Georgia Avenue. It's an old liquor store that we had to retrofit to a doggy daycare, and we still have it today. Yeah, and it just worked out. And it was like the perfect size for my first location. I really try to test stuff out before I go all in. So before I do like a huge location, I wanted to test it out, make sure the doggy daycare concept worked, and it worked. And something that's really important to me as I find future projects that still works with that this original one has is I like to be on a commuter street. It's really important to be on a street that's easily accessible from people coming in and out of the city, because not only do I provide services for people in the neighborhood, but if you're on that commuter street, people see your signage every day, and that's free advertising. And like it's on their way to work, on their way out of work, that just adds a lot more people into your potential client base. So that's really important to be on a commuter street. And nowadays, I do look to go in like Class A retail and mixed use buildings in more urban city centers, more urban style doggy daycare. So a new apartment building with ground floor retail is usually what I look for.
And you said the first one was on Georgia Avenue, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a perfect commuter street. I mean,
Absolutely.
Georgia or Wisconsin, Connecticut, you can't get any better than the major ones there in DC.
Yeah, my fourth one in DC is going to be on Rhode Island Avenue, which is a big one too.
Yeah.
And in my first location, we have put the signage up on Georgia Avenue. Like the first I mean, this still happens today, but people call us asking for a hot dog shop, district dogs. So it's just really,
Oh,
so before we opened and we had the signage up, we were getting emails and phone calls about like hot dogs and stuff like that. It's really funny.
oh, that is funny.
Yeah.
How big was the first one?
The first one was only 1,700 square feet.
Okay. And I'm sure now it's much different, right?
Yeah. My current two others in operation are around 3,000. But then my one in Northeast DC coming next year is going to be almost 7,000. And then my one in the Amazon HQ2 building will be close to 6,000.
Wow. So you're now not just providing obviously walking services, you're providing a lot more to the local
Mhm.
community, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Do you also have your own line as far as merchandise, whether products, whatever it may be?
We have on the website, go districtdogs.com/shop. There's various, I mean, I'm wearing one of the shirts today, but there's some shirts and hats, but I don't really do a ton of retail. If people want swag, they can go there and get some District Dog swag. But retail in general, it was more a pain than something that that made money. And it was just really hard to maintain inventory, and it just didn't make any money because we weren't a big enough pet store to actually have enough supply and different and variation that makes it, so where someone goes to buy pet supplies, because we're just too small. And then the few treats and the few toy stuff we had, it just didn't work out for everyone. So it was tough to maintain retail. And now I'm happy to keep the lobbies nice and clean without the retail. And
Sure. I'm sure, starting off with the dog walking services, a lot of it was first Craigslist, Yelp, and now with your physical locations going on to almost six, it's much different. How has it changed as far as what you were doing before to how I guess you are acquiring the customer clients today?
yeah, so we acquire the clients today. I mean, we're a decent sized brand now in Washington, D.C. So if people are looking for pet care services, District Dogs is going to pop up. When I first started, we necessarily wouldn't pop up all the time because we're pretty small. So it was really, I feel like when I first started, it was really just luck when people happened to give us a shot and it worked out. But nowadays, since we are pretty big, we have a lot of clients, we have a big social media following. It's really important for me, to have District Dogs part of the community. And that's something that we really try to focus on, is not only do we provide these services, we also try to be a part of the community. We engage with local restaurants and bars. Like we actually did an event with Framebridge, a picture framing store on, I think, Sunday this past week. And we try to just partner with other local businesses to give back to the dog community and do fun events. So it's really important. So when we're part of the dog community, people see us in the community, and that really helps them give us a shot with any of the services that we do. So along with our social media, just really being like there with the people, that's really important to us.
Yeah. Okay. That's good. What would you say drives and motivates you now?
From day one, I've always been motivated by my staff in trying to continue to grow a business, to give them opportunity in the job and industry they love. A lot of doggy daycares are happy with one or two locations, which is great. But if you have a rock star employee, that might not be enough for them. So I'm motivated to have more advancement opportunities for my staff. I'm hiring my first regional manager early next year, and I already have a person picked out. We've talked about it. We're just waiting for these next locations to open up. And it's really exciting for her. She's a current general manager, so she'll be promoted. So giving her this opportunity to have more responsibilities, more pay as well. And it's just great for her career. And staff is absolutely one of the things that motivates me the most. Then also, I love dogs. Dogs are a really important part of my life, and they were as a kid, and I know how important they are to everyone's lives. And just being able to provide more care to more dogs is always nice.
Yeah, I'm glad you just mentioned staff too. How do you choose that right team member, that right staff? Because I'm sure you said a couple months into it, you already had, I believe, several dog walkers. So now with your locations, I mean, how big is your team now?
Well, we have around, I think, 60 total employees. That includes full-time and part-time. That'll be easily probably close to double next year when I open my 2 new locations. But we try to, what's really important is not only finding people who love dogs and can take great care of dogs, but also the human experience is equally as important. Like, we could have the best team member with the dog, but if you can't deliver a fantastic experience to the client doesn't really know that you're giving a great experience to your dog. So you have to be able to do both. And that's something I've really focused on, is hiring people that can clearly communicate and give a wow customer experience, but also do the same thing with the dog in our care.
How do you know that they can do both? I'm just curious, is there like a survey or something that they fill out or complete before that, or?
Yeah, through the interview process that I have, I can tell. I think I'm pretty good at judging someone's abilities by the phone call and how they interact with me. And then also, of course, I call the references. And I also try to find people with prior experience, specifically in customer service experience. Like, I've had a couple people that used to work at Starbucks, and that experience and that training that they go through at Starbucks, it goes well at District Dogs. So it's easier for me to train the dog component of the job than it is to train the customer service experience. So if people have that existing experience from a different job, it really translates well. And also having a current employee who's like a prior school teacher, and that experience has translated very well into this role, because she knows how to deal with human parents and also dog parents. So that being able to communicate effectively about how your dog did during the day is very similar to about a child.
Okay, that's good. I love too, I heard this the other day from another entrepreneur, and when you mentioned it, just brought that back, as far as when you have a good team around you, they want to grow as well in their career. And therefore, if you're in the growth mindset as well, you want them to stay there. And therefore, you need to grow as a business as well and provide and give them other opportunities. Unfortunately, not all businesses do that. And I'm sure you've seen maybe other similar types of businesses that may be in the dog industry not grow to what you're doing today, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, it just really depends on what the owner's goals are. And like, I try to do what I can to give back to my team. I provide healthcare, matching 401k, PTO, and like, I really try to make this a career for most people that want to make it a career rather than just a job. If it's just a job, you'll be hiring, training people all the time. But trying to make it a career, you get more quality people, and they usually stick around longer, and they enjoy the job and do a better job.
How does your typical, well, I don't even know if it's typical, your typical day-to-day look like with all these locations?
Yeah. So at all my locations, I have general managers who run the day-to-day operations. My typical day, I'm a very early person. I'm usually up around 5:30 or 6, and I get most of my busy work done between 5:30 or 6 and 9 o'clock. Like, so I go through all my emails or accounting, all the busy work that I don't need to talk to anyone, just get it done. And then that happens usually in the very early morning. And then I like to stay fit. So I go to the gym usually after that for an hour or two. And then I get back to my office. In the afternoons are usually meetings, office, or I'll do some supply runs for my team. But for the most part, my general managers do a great job managing day to day. I check in, I email them, keep up what's going on, and I'll do stop-in visits as well. But that's usually what my day looks like. Just morning busy work and afternoon meetings.
Jacob, you just mentioned your GMs, your general manager, and talking to some business owners, sometimes it happens where the owner may sometimes be the biggest bottleneck in the business. And, they want to have their hands on everything in the pulse. And of course, as the owner, you should know what's going on everywhere in the business, but it sometimes it's hard to sort of delegate. Have you had any issues with that? Or if so, how did you work around that?
Ideally, if I don't talk to my general managers all day, that's a good thing. That means there's no issues. And that I like to put on as many responsibilities on my general managers as possible. And only things that should get to me are the things that need to get to me. I I can micromanage on a few things. Like if I stop in my store and I see like some dirt or grime in the lobby, I get very picky. I'm like, that's been there for a couple of days, clean that up. But for the most part, I try not to micromanage. I know I trust my managers, and I know when things start to, if things start to get a little rocky or not the best, like I start to see some warning signs. I'll see like staff checking in late, or a client complaint, or a couple client complaints. But if it goes, a week or two, I don't see much other, and I still talk with them, but that's a good thing. I guess I don't think there's a lot of things I bottleneck. I mean, there probably are things I'm not aware of and my staff could talk about. But from my end, I like them to handle their own problems that they can and come to me with things they can't.
Okay. Well, that's good. It sounds like you didn't have an issue as far as just providing everything to them and for them then to run the ball and see where they go. And then if anything falls, then that's when you start seeing the warning signs and you sort of step in.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because some of them don't want to do that. They want to be involved, and sometimes that's preventing the growth there.
Yeah, if I was involved daily, I wouldn't be able to grow at all. Like I with all the different meetings I have with architecture, design, zoning, development, just in general with them, future locations, or even hiring people, I wouldn't be able to. If I was in the store running operations, I couldn't do anything else. Because it's a full-time job in the store, so that's why I hired general managers.
That's smart. What advice would you give to someone who wanted to start any business, whether a product or service? Any pointers that they need to know first before starting off?
For me, any business idea that I think of, like branding and marketing and really setting yourself apart, is really important. Like not necessarily on the services you provide, but just looking different. If your brand is clean, modern, easy to understand, prices are easy to understand, services are easy to understand, like just make things simple and clean, and it just helps you stand out. You go to a competitor's website, it might be complicated and this and that, fees for this and that, and just gets too complicated. Just keep things simple.
I like that. Keep it simple.
Mm-hmm.
Especially now we're in the social media age, and with Instagram or Facebook, and you see all this flashy things going on and success. And a lot of people focus on the success, and you've had a great amount of success this far. And I know you're just starting, but along that road, along that journey, I know you've had some setbacks, I'm sure. Some failure. Some people don't like to label them as failure or whatever, however you want to call it. What is something that comes to mind that was sort of big in your journey there, Jacob, and how did you maneuver around it?
I mean, the biggest thing that probably anyone we can talk about is really the COVID pandemic in 2020. And that was by far the most impactful thing that's happened to my business and to anyone's business. Like it was the amount of unknown, uncertainty that came with that. I remember it was like probably February 2020, and I like saw all of this coming. I sent a note out to all staff, like, don't know what's going to happen, but we got to be prepared. And then when all the shutdowns happened, unfortunately, I did have to lay off most of my staff, and I think we're just ended down to 6 employees. And it was very scary. Didn't know what was going on, but luckily we were able to remain being open because we're in DC. Animal care was a essential business, so we were able to stay open. So we were able to continue bringing revenue in, and then during the pandemic, after the first month or so, we were able to we got back to almost to where we were before with daycare, not other services. So a lot of dogs came back, people working from home, Zoom calls, they need to get their dog out of the house. So I was fortunate to be able to hire most of my staff back. But what we really did to pivot in the new normal of COVID was I focused on grooming and dog training. I knew a lot of dogs were coming on with puppies, and the shelters were clear. And then with all these new dogs, they need training, but also grooming is something that you always need, even if you're working from home and you're stuck in your house. A dog always needs to be groomed every 3 months or so. So I really focused on the services that I knew that we could grow easier during the pandemic times, and that really helped our 2020 out a lot to help us get through and not have a lot of hurt from it. So that was our biggest pivot that we did, and it's still today.
So prior to COVID, you were not providing grooming services and the other service you mentioned?
Not the scale that we do now. We had like one groomer doing some cuts a day, but I was able to hire a couple more groomers, and we had no dog trainers. And now we have a team of 5. So the dog training has added about 30% to our top line of revenue just by adding that service. Like we worked with some other local trainers in the past, just a little revenue share here and there, but nothing substantial. So I'm like, I got to hire a training manager, and a lot of people were looking for work because they were laid off from their job from wherever they were doing dog training. I'm like, I got to get on this now. In like July of 2020 is when I hired my first training manager. And then from there, we added more trainers, and now it's a big part of our business.
And you mentioned 5 dog trainers. Are they all full-time or part-time basis?
Yep, all full-time.
Oh, wow. Okay. Out of all the services you have, dog walking, boarding, grooming, training, and others, what would you say, I guess, is the best margin for you in your business?
Let's see. Yeah, it's a good question. I would say, they're all actually pretty similar.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say the overnight boarding is probably the highest margin, just because it is the amount of staff that we have to have doesn't necessarily change much for overnight. If we have 5 dogs or 10, we saw like one person, the dog's in their suite sleeping. So I would say the overnight boarding is probably the highest margin business, but all of them are about the same margin actually. Daycare is probably the least, the lowest margin because it's more of our, the general service, the bread and butter. It's like what dogs come in to start a relationship, and then really the extra services, grooming, training, boarding is really where more of the profit probably comes from.
Sure. Okay. So that's good to hear, as far as only within, sounds like a month, some of the daycare service recuperated during COVID. But you said the other sort of lagged behind, and that's when you sort of pivoted. Well, not pivoted, but you started with other services then, and here you are now, right?
Yeah. So our overnight boarding was pretty much non-existent all through 2020. No one was traveling, so no one needed overnight boarding. Daycare picked up. It wasn't exactly where it was pre-COVID, but it was substantial, and I could hire back my staff to take care of the dogs. And dog grooming and training is really the 2 things I focused on to make up for the lost revenue for the overnight boarding. In dog walking too, dog walking dropped by 75-80%, and it's still down 75% now than it was prior to COVID, because people who need dog walking services usually have more low maintenance dogs that don't need a daycare during the day. So if they're working from home, they can let their dog out briefly. They don't need a dog walk. But if you need daycare services, you need daycare services more now because you're working from home. You're not at the office, so your dog is with you, and you need the dog out of the house. So it's sort of like you're taking your dog to work and you're staying at home to do your work, rather than the other way around, where you would go to the office and leave your dog at home. So it's really interesting how we've seen such big demand in daycare because people need a quiet house.
Jacob, I'm curious, since you lost you said it's still down 75%, the dog walking stream of income, but I'm sure the other services that you brought in, such as the grooming, the training, that has more than outweighed that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So we're definitely, our growth from 2020 is actually around 100%, but we did bring on a new location at the end of 2020. So that helped. But yeah, the new services have definitely recouped what has been lost for dog walking. I still have hopes for dog walking. My general manager of dog walking is still there. We still have 5 or 6 or so dog walkers. And I do expect it to rebound at some point, but I don't really know when, because we don't really know when people go to the office on a more regular basis. We know no one's going to the office forever, all the time, but at least a more regular basis would be beneficial.
Yeah. Also, during COVID brought you a new family member, right?
Yes, it did.
So now it expanded.
Yeah, I got a second dog. Her name's Elka. She's a German pinscher. Unfortunately, she was in our care because her dad, was in cancer treatment during COVID. So her and her two parents, 3 dogs, were in our care at District Dogs and Navy Yard. And very sad, but he did pass away during his treatment, very unexpectedly. We were able to rehome her parents, and then I fostered her, and then that was a mistake because when you foster a dog, you end up just keeping them. So I fostered her, and then she became a part of my family. So yeah, I have a second family member, and she's great.
Yeah, I see some of the stories between the two of them, and the attention they seek from Jacob.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, Elka likes it. If you give anyone else attention, Elka wants it, so she'll be up in your face. And it's been really great because my first dog, Molly, she's 9 years old. She's happy just laying down all day, looking outside the window. But now having our 2-year-old crazy girl, they play a lot, and Molly likes the company. At least I think she does. But it's definitely nice to see them play with each other.
Yeah, we thought about fostering. We adopted a pit bull mix maybe 3 years ago. It was pre-COVID, maybe 3-4 years ago, and especially with that breed, that they're unfortunately very misunderstood. And this was my first time having a pit bull mix, and I'm like, next time. And the majority of the shelters, unfortunately, are filled with a lot of that breed. And I'm like, next time I would want to get another one. And we thought about it. And my mom was like, well, what about foster? I'm like, if we foster, we're not going to want to give the dog back. It's part of the family. We go back and forth as far as possibly getting a second one and adopting another one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's great. I mean, my house is a little messier, a little dirtier with the 2 dogs because they're always, at first with Molly, she would sleep all day, but now the pillows are always a mess or whatever. But it's nice. It's nice to have a little more energy in the house.
It is. I love dogs myself as well. Any particular habits or traits, Jacob, that you use daily that you feel that has helped you, whether on the personal side of things or in business?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So something that that's important to me that I try to, that's a habit of mine, is like, I've read this book, I think it's called The Art of Getting Things Done. Just like getting things done is really important. A lot of people procrastinate little things for no reason. And then there's a rule in the book that I read that if you can do it under 2 minutes, do it now. Doesn't matter what's going on. If you have something to do under 2 minutes, just do it. And then you get a lot done if you just live by that rule. Because a simple email takes 45 seconds, but you hold on to it for 2 days for no reason. Just getting stuff done dramatically improves your day and your productivity. So that's something that's really important to me as a habit. So if just the quick, easy to do things, don't wait around, just do it.
Yeah, that's good. Don't even think about it, just go.
Right, exactly, yeah. You'd be amazed how many people just hold on to little things for no reason. Then they pile up and you get stressed out with so much to do, but it really is only about 30 minutes of work if you just do it. So, yeah.
You've had a very rich career this far. What is it, the thing that you're most proud of?
Mm-hmm. The most proud of thing is, and I've told this employee this, but when she bought her first home, knowing that she was employed by District Dogs, my paycheck or her paycheck from District Dogs was able to contribute to her first home. That's really important to me. And I'm very proud of that.
I love that a lot of what you do, it's all about your team and the growth of your team. And that's great because I think if it first starts with a team, if the team is happy and grows, but of course, there is no other way, you will grow as well.
Right. Exactly. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And it's like your team is everything. Absolutely everything. I know I'm probably not the easiest. I mean, I know my staff can probably get mad at me from time to time. I'm not the easiest to work with. I have high expectations, but at this point, they all know how to work with me and they know how I come off. But my team is definitely everything. Without them, I wouldn't be here, and the dogs wouldn't getting the fantastic care that they're currently getting.
What's your biggest challenge today at District Dogs?
Let's see. The biggest challenge at the moment on my existing locations is being able to provide enough care for all the dogs. We have many more dogs than I was expecting to have at this time in these locations, just because everyone needs our services. Like we've been booked up for the holidays for overnight boarding since probably August, and like that's never happened. So the amount of people that need our services is out of this world. So that's a really big challenge, because it's a challenge for my staff too, because every now and then a quiet, slow day is nice, but we haven't had a quiet, slow day in all year at all. Not one day has been quiet and slow. And that can be hard on my team too. I try to staff up, and luckily we're fully staffed. It took us all year to get fully staffed. That was a pretty hard thing to do, because our business just grew so fast. But all the dogs and having enough staff, that's tough. And adding these 2 new locations later this or early next year should help alleviate that and spread out some of the demand, or the demand that we aren't able to capture can go elsewhere. So that's a tough challenge right now.
That's a very good challenge and problem to have, as far as having that much demand to fulfill.
Yeah, it's definitely a good problem to have. I'm happier to be on this side of things rather than not enough. But it's still, you got to make sure your quality of care is still high, even with the increased demand. So it brings on a lot of new challenges, and still probably about the same level of stress, just different type of stress. We're just making sure that we're still doing what we need to do with all this demand, and trying not to make people unhappy by saying no.
I'm glad to hear, Jacob, that it sounds like you didn't have an issue as far as staffing up to meet that demand, because I talk to a lot of business owners, and of course it depends on the industry that you're in, but many of them right now with COVID and now coming out of it have been having a challenge as far as finding the right employees and the teams, as far as the job market.
Yeah, it's at first it was challenging. Like, it was spring and summer of 2021 was pretty tough. But towards the end of summer, we actually we got some really good key staff members on board, and it was much easier. Even the past 8 weeks, we've had good success bringing on board. Right now, we're slightly overstaffed. We have, which is a good problem to have. Like, I'm happy to be overstaffed. Like, I will double up shifts on important days just for like an insurance policy if someone were to call out or sick. So I like to be well overstaffed, and it's a risk worth taking. And yeah, I think we're just very fortunate. I know a lot of people have been in the industry for a while and are looking for a company that has growth opportunities, and that's been one of the biggest things that applicants will talk about with prior experiences. They want somewhere where there's more advancement opportunities. So that's something that I try to do for my staff. I've already spoken about, and that's what people are looking for, and that's a way that I guess a lot of people are choosing to work at District Dogs.
Are you involved as well with all the hiring, or do you have HR or HR manager with that?
Yeah, so my general manager at my Shaw facility, Jillian, she does most of the in-person interviews. I do most of the screening. I'll do the phone call. But as moving to next year, when Jillian will be my new regional manager, she'll do most of the HR stuff completely. But right now, that is the one thing I am pretty heavily involved with at the moment.
And most of your new team members, I'm sure some of it's referral, but is it just like, I guess, online posting, Monster? I don't know if you use other ones, or Indeed, or whatever it may be.
Yeah, a lot of them come from Indeed, and then also we have a career page on our website, and we get a lot of applicants directly from the website. And yeah, I think it's probably equally split, Indeed and the website. If I need a more specialized position, like a dog groomer or a dog trainer, I'll go to Indeed, because not all groomers are looking on my website. But a lot of people looking for just normal dog daycare attendant positions come through my website to District Dogs.
Okay. What do you know now that you wish you would have known at the start of your career?
I guess just like how to be a better manager. It's managing people's tough. Like, I expected it to be easy. I expected, I'm a decent person, can communicate well. I can have a team of people and manage them well. It's hard. It's really hard, and that's by far the hardest part of the job. Just managing people, keeping drama out of the workplace, which drama can come up from crazy stuff that doesn't. Yeah, don't get me started with that. But just just maintaining the peace among staff members, a team environment, coworker camaraderie. That's tough. It's a lot of work, and being more prepared, and or at least having different expectations would have been better. So just be ready for a big learning curve with human management.
Yeah. When I say the word success, Jacob, what's the first thing that comes to mind?
I mean, it goes back to my staff. Like the larger team that I have, the more clients I have, that's how I value my success. I mean, obviously, revenue and profit are really important as a business owner. It's important to me to make sure that we're surviving, that we're flourishing as a business. But I really think about my team, and like I love to think about my managers and how they are managing my store, and like it's just the amount of work they're doing, and all that is off my plate, and I can focus on other things. So just knowing all this stuff is happening in the background that I am no longer directly a part of, but I know it's happening. That sort of success to me is just like everything I've built so far, and that it's just like a steam engine. It's just going on its own, mm-hmm. And then I'm just constantly adding to the fuel or adding more carts to the train type of thing. So it's that's how I sort of see success when you bring it up.
You just mentioned earlier, as far as the challenge in the management part of things, did you have growing the business, whether starting off or now, as far as a mentor, whether directly or indirectly?
That's a good question. So I thought about this a lot, because I know you did mention there might be a question, and it's really tough. I don't have one person I would necessarily consider, a mentor. There's been a lot of people in my life, personal, business, professional, that have been very impactful along the way. But there's not been like a one person mentor, to be honest, that's really helped guide me down this journey. I've really just figured out a lot out of my own. I've always been really good at figuring things out, whether with any aspect of life. I've just figured it out. And I really thought hard about this, and I wish there was that one person I always would go to for advice, and there really isn't. Just been lots of people, family, friends, coworkers have all been super supportive in their own way. Mm-hmm. So really just my whole support network has been really what's got me through to where I am today.
Okay. No, that's good. I hear a mixed bag of things. There's entrepreneurs that have had sort of mentors or coaches. And for example, today an episode came out with a tech founder, and he's had multiple coaches throughout his entrepreneurial journey. But everyone's different.
Yeah.
Yeah. Coming to an end here now soon, Jacob, I know you have a couple locations in the process of opening, but what does the next couple of years look like for you and District Dogs?
Yeah, so like I do have a couple opening, and a big one is I mentioned previously is that we're going to Amazon's HQ2 building, and that's a very a long process to get selected, and we competed with a few other local doggy daycare businesses, and that's really, I feel like it speaks to the success that District Dogs has, that Amazon trusts District Dogs to deliver a great experience for their employees and also the people in the community. So that's one thing in the next couple of years we're really looking forward to, and we think is really going to be a big deal for the business and for the company. And beyond that, I mean, I am looking to expand in other markets, and maybe a couple more in the DMV area, maybe some a little further south. I'm not quite sure, but we definitely have some ideas out there, and we're looking at some opportunities outside the DMV area. But I want to just continue growing the company and provide an opportunity and see where it leads us.
I understand right now all the locations are in DC and Northern Virginia. Maryland is in the horizon in the future, or?
It's on the list, yeah.
Okay.
But we haven't actively looked into anything yet. But it's definitely on our, the plan for the DMV area. Yeah,
because I think you guys will do great. One of the guests, and I think one of the first 10 episodes was the founder of Bark Social. I don't know if you're familiar with Bark Social. Yeah. He's been on the show, and right there in Pike and Rose, North Bethesda, Rockville area. I think you're very much needed in Maryland.
Yeah. It's on the list. And one thing that I've been, if anything, I can probably hinder my own growth, because I'm I don't want to do too much at once. I want to take things pretty flow. And I have some people, they're like, just grow. Like I would go crazy if I opened 5 in 1 year. I couldn't do it. So maybe I could have to hire a team. And but I definitely have plans to come out to Maryland.
By the way, all this growth now that you mentioned, I know the first one was self-funded. Is it still that way, or have things changed on that part?
It's part of that way. I mean, a lot of the way that we negotiate our leases, I mean, it's pretty, I don't know, like talk about too much, but it's something that I think sets us apart from others. But we definitely negotiate like, some tenant improvement allowance.
TI, of course.
Yeah, which is beneficial. And then we also like to, we sort of like to position district dogs as amenity to the neighborhood, to the building. And also, obviously, it's a business, but we really try to amenitize our business, say, hey, you need district dogs type of thing. So through our deal negotiation process with our landlords, that really helps grow the business and fund the build outs. But it only covers about 60-70% of the total cost. And then the rest is usually cash flow.
Yeah, okay. What do you like to do for fun, Jacob, when you're not busy working?
I'm a huge ultimate frisbee player. I play 3 or 4 times a week in the mornings, like 7 a.m. at a local park, a couple blocks away. And then on Sundays, I play pickup for a few hours. So I love ultimate frisbee. That's probably my biggest hobby. I do some mountain biking too. You can see my bike back there. I play a lot of video games. I have a big group of gamers, and we love to play video games.
That's awesome. Are you in a league, by the way, for the ultimate frisbee?
Yeah. I'm in a rec league. We play pretty much all year. There's leagues and seasons all year round.
Okay, that's awesome. Jacob, if people want to reach out to you, learn more about you and District Dogs, where can they go, please?
You can email me, jacob@districtdogs.com. Instagram is really big for District Dogs. Just is at District Dog. And of course, our website, districtdogs.com. It's all pretty easy to find us online.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for coming on the show, Jacob.
Thanks for having me.
Of course, it was all a pleasure. Take care.
Thank you.